How's it going? How is everything? That would be disingenuous. That would mean I was going to be friends and friendly. And I'm not. I'm not going to be friendly.
He doesn't know who to blame, himself or one of the other wives. Cody's feeling a lot of rejection. And so I think he's kind of looking at me going, are you going to reject me too? And so I'm on my toes. I'm having to consistently make sure that he is not sabotaging our relationship.
Hi, besties. Welcome back to my channel. Do you remember how for years we have talked about polygamy and the really negative consequences it has for women and how it's very detrimental to their self-esteems and to their self-worth and to their self-value and to their just agency and their ability to think for themselves and have control over their own lives and the respect or the lack of respect that people have for them in these cults, and really how the system itself is based upon a misogynistic view that women are to serve men, and that's only their reason to serve men. But because women are more complicated than being a servant to a man and are more multifaceted and can do more than just simply be a man's helpmeet, the system itself forces women to play a role that they're not comfortable playing and that are limiting them to solely being a vehicle for a man for sex and for making children. And I think the devaluing that happens in polygamy is what causes the competitiveness and the hierarchies and the maladaptive behaviors and the fighting, because everyone wants to survive and get their needs met. Christine Brown's book, is really a view of what it's like to try to get your needs met in a family when your spiritual husband decides that his new wife is going to be his play toy and he's going to abandon and neglect all his other responsibilities. And it's a view into how jealousy for Christine also fueled an awakening to a degree, but also there's also a lack of accountability on the part of Christine. And I don't say that to be critical of her. I'm saying that to be honest, only because every single person has their own role in their life and everything that they're doing. And no matter what happens in a fight, even though I think that I'm right, or if you're right, doesn't mean that I was. And even if I didn't mean to hurt you, doesn't mean that I didn't. And nobody's behavior when you're in a tense relationship or in a tense situation is perfect. And so it fuels toxic behavior by all. And Christine seems to have developed this maladaptive coping mechanism of wearing rose-colored glasses. And it's, I guess, maybe a form of denial where it's hard for her to look beyond the good. And it's hard for her to look beyond, the hope, because it would be maybe shatter her mirror of what she thought her life was. But I also think it's how she copes with her own faults and her own misgivings and her failures, because we all fail. And Christine's book, to me, exposed how Robyn coming into the family woke up a part of her that might have been dead, maybe made her realize that her relationship with Cody wasn't what she thought it was. But I think she knew her relationship with Cody wasn't great before Robyn came along. But I also think it opened up like this jealousy that she's talked about, this jealousy and her lack of awareness of how jealousy impacts other people, but also that maybe she wasn't the nicest to Robyn, even though she claims she was, right? Maybe she wasn't the easiest for Robyn. Maybe Robyn couldn't trust her because she didn't know if Christine was going to be real or not. Christine speaks a lot about how she has to play a role and play a part. And so she would just fake things and fake being nice. And if someone can feel you not being authentic, maybe that's going to impact a relationship with you. I'm not saying Robyn's perfect, but I think Christine, if you were going to have a relationship with her, she might be hard to trust because she has a habit of just being really nice and trying to be super accommodating to your face, but then she's personally in her mind thinking, I don't like you, I hate you, you're a horrible person. And so that is equally hard to trust. It's as hard to trust someone that's disingenuously happy as it is to trust someone that openly plays games and runs and tattles on you and does things behind your back, right? I think Christine and Robyn are more alike than they're different, but I think that ultimately the position that Kody and Robyn got them in was abusive for all, right? And I think it's wrong what they did, but I also think that Christine had a role in not leaving earlier. And if you read the book and you come away with this thinking, I can't believe you stayed on the show for this many years. I can't believe you're still on the show. I can't believe you didn't leave after the first season or season 6 or whatever it was. And you really start to question her. I think that's normal. And she says that people question her all the time and she didn't know she had to leave until she had to leave. And I get that. But I think that there's also a deception here that she stayed so long because of her faith, because of her family, because of what they've built. But then also by staying in that situation, she exposed her kids to a really harmful life. And the hardest part for me about this entire book is Christine's a lack of reflection about how her behavior negatively impacted her children. That's the part that's the hardest for me because even at the end and after all the neglect and the abuse that Kody was, her kids were exposed to and all of this her kids were put through, there's really still a lack of sense that I did anything wrong, that I could have done something differently. She still says she regrets nothing. I think people that can't have regrets are people that don't want to admit failure. And I think when you grow up in a cult like this, you can't admit failure because you're narcissistic, because you're told that you're the chosen and you're perfect. And Christine describes how her mom left the church and she describes questioning her faith from a very young age. And that when her mother left, it made her dig her feet in harder into the faith so that she could prove her mom wrong. And she became more pious and more devout and more narcissistic herself because she believed that if she was more godly and more pious, that she would get more blessings from heaven. Here's something from the book. The funny thing about eternal marriages, though, and piety is there's a narcissism to piety. God will reward me if I suffer through this marriage. God will see me as deserving above others. If I was suffering and God loved me more for it, how did he feel about happy people? Isn't that what I had questioned as a child? The idea that God was judgmental? Hadn't my parents taught me he was a loving entity? But I'd also made a promise to the same God, Kody, and my sister wives, and relationship promises can also feel like narcissism. Yes, don't cheat on me with women you aren't married to. Yes, parent our children with me. Yes, work with me hard to make this eternal. But also, if you don't dig me, let me go find someone who does. Don't take away my opportunity to be loved. I'm sure you think I'll fall apart without you, but your rejection won't kill me. And I don't believe God wants us to be miserable. I wasn't able to recognize that Kody's inability to be a partner was a violation of that eternal contract. Nobody teaches you that. She views Kody and Robyn's relationship as infidelity. And it's this weird, complicated view because she's already in a relationship where he has other women and he's not faithful to any of them. But she says, I was livid when I found out Kody had kissed Robyn when they had gotten engaged. Kody found that confusing. Remember how mortified I was about an awkward kiss at the altar? Kiss the next one before you marry her because our first kiss was awkward and that was terrible. I had told him long before another bride had appeared on the horizon. Also, no wives should witness your first kiss. That needs to be special. And he agreed. And then I found out he had been kissing Robyn, and you're married and you're kissing another woman. We've talked about this. You said you regretted having your first kiss at the altar. Don't you remember that? I do, I said, because I did remember. I remembered it vividly how unromantic every bit of it had been, but this hurts because it was also terribly romantic because he was in love with her. Looking back, I don't think the kiss bothered me as much as the intimacy. It didn't feel fair, but it also felt like something he couldn't control. Christine was so insecure in her marriage with Kody, and they had such a lack of depth in their relationship that bringing another woman into this was never going to work for her because she already doubted her place and she already doubted their connection and she already doubted that he truly loved her. And when Robyn came in, I know that from the outside looking in, it's easy to pit it all on Robyn, but I think that Kody is the one to blame here because she writes about when they get the show and they do engagement photos for the show. They do promo photos for the show, and Kody calls Robyn sexy, and she hears him calling her sexy. And Kody is constantly fawning over how beautiful Robyn is. And then Christine then spends several chapters fixating on how she's overweight and how she's unattractive. And she spends all this conversation about talking about how much she weighs and how much she wants to weigh and how much she doesn't weigh. And that's the trauma to me of this is that Kody put Robyn on such a pedestal that it made Christine feel like if she just lost more weight, if she just did more things for him, if she just did more and looked better and was prettier, that he would love her more. And that's on Kody. Robyn cannot control her size when she was 30 or whatever. She has the body she has. She has the metabolism that she has. She has the looks that she has, right? None of that is within her control. She also is a woman that likes to wear makeup and look nice and look pretty, and that's just who she is. And Christine felt like she couldn't compete with that. And Kody made her feel like she couldn't compete with that. So the jealousy is directed at Robyn, but it's really should be placed at the feet of Kody. A lot of her anger with Robyn isn't properly directed at the right person. And she does recognize that at times where she says she wishes that she would have not made it seem like she was mad at Robyn and put it more where it deserved at Kody's feet. But I think that Kody found a way to play into that insecurity that she felt to like really mess up her mind in a way. And I think he used Robyn in a way to try to get Christine to be who he wanted her to be, right? So, well, if you can just be more like Robyn, I'll love you more. Christine says that he can't control it. That's bullshit. No man needs to bring in another wife when he already has all these other women. He doesn't need to fall in love. He doesn't need to abandon his family. That was a choice. You can control that. You can control not talking to other people when you're married and looking for love outside of your marriage. You absolutely can control that. And so she does give him more leeway than he probably deserves. I think where his preference for Robyn made her target Robyn and hate Robyn was because Kody did just want to be with Robyn, and Kody did seem to have an affinity for Robyn, right? Like she looked the way that he wanted a wife to look, she acted the way a wife wanted to act, and he wanted everyone else to conform because that's what he wanted. And he thought life would be easier if everyone was like Robyn, which is a horrible, horrible dynamic. Nobody should have to compete. But her self-worth really did take a hit because of Kody valuing Robyn's appearance over everyone else's and her feeling insecure because then he writes a book and calls her fat and says he wasn't attracted to her. So I feel for her in that respect. I think where Robyn really failed Christine, if we're going to flip it around, is Robyn used her position as Kody's favorite to become, it almost feels like Robyn got high on the power that she got. And she felt like she could get what she wanted from Kody if she could make herself the victim in every situation. So she used it to her advantage. She knew that Kody wanted to protect her. She knew that Kody was going to do what she wanted. If she could always be the victim of everyone else, I think Robyn was able to then successfully pit him against his wives. So it's like Kody's trying to pit the wives against each other, and Robyn's really just trying to pit Kody against everyone else. And they're two narcissists playing a narcissistic game. And where Robyn ends up doing her dirty is by Christine confiding in her and then running to Kody and telling Kody, what she had said. And I think that was where she felt betrayed. There's a number of points with Robyn where it's evident that her relationship with Robyn isn't going to work. There's early on, she'll write about the book with when Robyn goes and tries her wedding dress on, and then she finds out later that Robyn went with Kody and didn't tell anyone. So Robyn and Kody start keeping secrets, which she thought was really, disrespectful. And because they did everything on the show so openly, she felt like it was a slap in the face for them to then go privately off camera to do it and then not tell them about it. And that Robyn really it was more like Robyn got caught than actually Robyn being sorry. There was more of that when they got their engagement photos together and they looked like they were far more comfortable together than they appeared to be than they should have been. Christine was a very pious, don't kiss, very chaste person and very religious. I would say of all of them, she might have been the most religious. And I think she resented Robyn because Robyn was looser with all of these rules and didn't really understand polygamy. I think that Robyn inserted herself in relationships and maybe tried to help, but then created more conflict because then she was able to form and mold Kody's mind around things. And then she talks very much about Kody's mindset and the way he speaks changing and becoming and parroting Robyn's words. There's conversation she has with Robyn about, talking about family traditions, and Robyn perceives that as Christine trying to pull rank, or Christine confiding in Robyn that my daughter could have died if he had been, but he was too worried about your kids and not mine. And then she takes that personally. And then Christine openly says in the book that Robyn was so needy of Kody's time and attention that it was at the expense of everyone else. And she wanted things and she wanted money and things and stuff more than she wanted the family. And that greed that Robyn had and that insatiable need for more at the detriment of everyone else is really what created a huge issue in the family. But then also the deception. So Kody and Robyn would do things and then just not be honest with them. Another example is their move to Flagstaff, where they don't tell them that they're moving because of Dayton getting accepted to NAU, and they make up a lie that it's about the Raiders football team moving, and that's why they're moving. It's to get the kids out of an unsafe environment, when the truth is they moved their entire family so that they could live in Flagstaff, so that Robyn could be close to her child, but then she's ripped away from all of her kids. Another example of Robyn getting more is Christine's ring loses a stone and she asks for a new ring, and he says they don't have money, but then he goes and buys Robyn a ring with a diamond. And she's already had 2 rings with diamonds. Robyn's never had one. So it's the only ring that Robyn's had with a diamond. So it's a weird thing to be mad about because she's had one in the past, but she said, well, he didn't do that for me. He goes and tucks in Robyn's kids every night, but he won't help her with her own children, their children together. He very much places Robyn's kids on a pedestal versus her kids. He takes her kids out to eat, Robyn's kids, all the time, never takes Christine's kids out to eat, never buys Christine's kids nice gifts, always spoils Robyn's kids. And I just think Robyn just demanded more. And I also think that Kody was less secure in his relationship with Robyn because he was constantly having to buy things to her, to woo her, to prove his love to her, to win her over. And I think Robyn was maybe more confident in that she didn't need Kody. And so she used that to her advantage. I'll just leave. She would always threaten to leave him. And, so Cody's chasing a woman that's using him for his money, very obviously. And I think that dynamic itself, Christine calls them soulmates, but I don't think Robyn and Kody are soulmates. I don't. I think they use each other. And I don't think that they have this solely bonded relationship. I think Cody's infatuated with what she looks like and the prestige he feels like he gets from having her as a trophy wife. And that, Christine was the older, less in shape wife that he could just disregard and treat terribly and disregard her kids. And really what the story to me is ultimately about is what happens when a man develops a favorite wife and the impact that has on all the other women that are lost in the shadow and the kids that are lost in the shadows because of that. I think that Robyn doesn't have the best motives. And I think that she 100% is greedy. And I think she 100% is out for herself and wasn't out for the family at all. I think Christine was right not to be able to trust her. But equally, I think that Cody did a really good job of making Robyn not trust the other women. And I think at the end of the day, if none of these people were in polygamy, some of these behaviors wouldn't exist. Like they wouldn't be fighting and competing for a man. They wouldn't be comparing what the other person has and doesn't have. They wouldn't be worried about what he was doing when he's not at their house. But what Cody did wasn't that he just had a favorite wife, it was that he abandoned all of the wives. And I think the biggest betrayal for all of these women is that Cody and Robyn just did all of this for a show, and they controlled them and lied to them and deceived them and strung them along and used them for money. And I can understand why Christine is resentful of all of these things, but I also think to the same degree, she still continues to profit off the show. She's writing this book and profiting off the show. She's telling her story, which she has told a million times. And she's more outside of the cult than she was, but she still has a lot of that programming in her. And I don't know that she really has, I don't know that she'll ever really be able to deconstruct what she went through and experiences until she allows herself to feel the pain of it all, really and truly, and not have to put on a brave face for polygamy and say that everything is fine. There's nothing wrong with polygamy. Because at the bottom line, I think it's easier for her to blame Cody and it's easier for her to blame Robyn than it is to blame the structure of polygamy itself for creating this dynamic. And it's easier for her to blame that than say polygamy is bad than it would be to acknowledge that her grandfather wasn't the perfect man that she says he was, or that there isn't abuse in this cult that she says it is. I think she wants Cody and Robyn to be the ones at fault so that she doesn't have to admit the bigger problem here is polygamy. That doesn't excuse Cody and Robyn, but Cody and Robyn exist because of a cult and they're behaving in the structure and the confines of a cult and the society and the culture that's implemented through the cult. Cody is a byproduct of the cult as much as she is. I think if we want to place the blame on anyone, let's blame polygamy. I hope she gets to a point where she realizes that it's polygamy's problem and it's okay to admit you're wrong. And yes, Robyn is and did betray her and they did cheat on her and they absolutely went beyond the piety of, what she did and they absolutely broke boundaries. But at the same time, all of that woke her up to what she was missing out in life. So maybe that's the silver lining of it all. I don't know. The relationship between Robyn and Christine is far more complicated than just Robyn is a bad person and that Cody is a bad person. They're in a bad system, and that's the truth. So her full breakdown of all of Robyn's betrayals are in the book. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.